because audio source.
Okay.
All right, so we should be back up. Should be back up. There we go.
Alrighty.
Yeah, so I see it running on my screen. Do you see it back up in your seat?
I see that we're live, and I see no Xenuria, and I see that I'm off center, which means that Aerith will yell at me. Somebody is saying still no mittens. Let's go ahead and see if
that's not true. They can hear you.
they can hear me. Okay,
Yeah.
they can hear me. They just wish that they couldn't. Okay. All right.
I also
Make
fix
some
the
noises.
also fix the audio sync
Wonderful. Okay.
according to this chat. So we're good.
We actually have a fair amount of stuff to go over today because we actually had like a lot of crap happen at EVE Online this last week in terms of space war. A lot of blood and treasure spilled in Hakonin. Trying to figure out whether we want to discuss anything else before we get seriously stuck into nullsec. But I think
that's it.
I think that's pretty much it. I think it's time to dive straight into politics, and then we're going to get Xenuria in about 22 minutes, and we'll be talking about CSM stuff.
You've gone robot.
I've gone robot.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Like your cam's distorted and your audio quality is dropped.
That's really interesting because according to I think your connection hates you, Laz. Like
no, my connection's running fine. But I can see Xenuria fine, and the stream's running fine.
And,
it's just
and
you.
I'm a robot Matani. That's interesting.
Right, now you're back again.
Oh God, this is like one of those things where I'm like,
someone in the chat. I think this is an improvement.
Cylon mittens, excellent.
Right. So I think we're good.
Famous last words. All right, boys and girls, let's do this. Let's get stuck in. If we are actually functioning, if I am not a Cylon at the moment, then let's go ahead. We have had an awful lot of activity in Conan. Have we run our little nullsec power hour? Are we good?
Well, no, let's just roll with it because with the way the stream's already started going, let's just just keep on going.
Let's just do it live. Okay, we are in Bill O'Reilly mode. That's fantastic. So yeah, basically, I don't know why, because it makes no strategic sense, but collectively speaking, both the Imperium and the Coalition of the Billing, who would prefer to call themselves Losec Voltron, but for that whole taking Isk from I want to Isk and from RMF Horus pesky thing, they get to be called the Coalition of the Billing, have been like. I was looking into this in the aftermath of the first Hakonin mess, where CO2 a few days ago in the dead zone, the 2300 Eve dead zone, which is a nightmare. Any fight that happens at 2300 Eve is bad for pretty much anybody who wants to get reinforcements, unless you have a prepared trap. 2300 Eve, we call it the dead zone because the Europeans in general on a weekday are going to bed. It's late. On Euro time, 2300 Eve is mostly like 1 o'clock in the morning in a lot of Europe. And the American players are still just commuting back from work. Like they're on the process of commuting home from work. So like there's this period around 2300 to midnight Eve where you just can't get numbers from Euro players or for US players as long as it's on a weeknight. So probably like the biggest news in terms of damage done was CO2, member of the Imperium, lost 3 Titans and a supercarrier when they got dread bombed by the Losec Voltron / Coalition of the Billing people, and that was just a mess. I mean, it was just an ugly, ugly situation. Like the dread bomb, the Imperium, and our enemies are collectively just like it's not the front line in a Sov war. These are just like it's like we're just fighting over a flag, and there's probably been like 2 to 3 trillion ISK. Collectively in the last couple of months wasted in Hakonin. And these towers are ridiculous. There are 64s in Hakonin, and nobody makes money off of them because they're always reinforced. So even after the towers are saved, if you win a big battle or you lose a big battle, nobody's making any money of them. And the Imperium and our enemies are collectively just like it's not the front line in a Sov war. These are just like it's like we're just fighting over a flag, and there's probably been like 2 to 3 trillion ISK collectively in the last couple of months wasted on these Hakonin towers, and I'm just like, why are we doing this? I mean, we're going to keep doing it because it's we've had some fun fights, and it's just kind of funny though. Like you see people like having these major fights for essentially no greater strategic purpose at all, but they've been fantastic. I mean, I don't know how would you have done things differently, Laz? If you looking at some of that, let's get some FC analysis going on here.
I mean, like you said, the biggest thing was the 2300 dead zone timer, and Hakonen is in this vacuum, and it's the same reason when Pandemic Legion moved to Akora, we weren't afraid because they're like 3 or 4 centimeters away. So with CO2 operating in Hakonen in this vacuum, that's at least 3 centimeters away for us to get capital reinforcements to that area. That if they drop something like this, especially in a dead zone time zone, we can't do anything, and that's what happened. I was talking to a bunch of people as it was going on, and it apparently wasn't a trap. It wasn't a planned thing. Anything. It was just a capital escalation gone wrong. The low-sec guys were able to quickly scramble enough Dreadalls to completely zonk 3 Titans before anyone could really get there. And to be honest, if we the rest of the Imperium were to try and get there anyways, it would have taken us at least an hour. So
it was a mess. Like we were calling for reinforcement fleets to like send people over there, and one of the other problems about the dead zone is communication. Like I didn't actually realize that there were Titans on the field and that we had lost any until like I was informed when the first Ragnarok had already been destroyed. Because since it was happening in the dead zone, a lot of people who were normally paying attention to things weren't really aware. There's a lack of communication, and then when it was time to like form up reinforcement fleets, hey guys, this random off at 2300, you get 60 dudes in a fleet, and that's basically all you've got. Apparently I'm a robot again. It's funny because I can watch my webcam, like the quality degrading.
So yeah, start degrading, and then that's when it
normally Skype does this thing where it's like, everything sucks, your connection is, it's saying that the connection between myself and the server is unknown rather than just saying it's bad. So Skype has recently updated and is being kind of weird today, I guess.
I blame Wisconsin internet, just saying.
Just saying. It's weird because, I can load everything else up just fine, but at least this time we're not playing Twitch. But as long as you guys can hear me, let's then toss it back to Laz, who can actually be understood.
But no, like you said, whenever we the Greater Imperial Illuminati channel didn't really know what was going on until after Sebastian's Ragnarok and one of the Nixes were already dead. Like they lost 2 super capital ships before anyone was really starting to respond.
Yeah,
I just started streaming because I just got home from work, and I rushed over there with an interceptor. And when we were getting there, the second avatar was dying, and this was probably 20 minutes after we found out and started scrambling to get there to help. So like. There was no time for us to respond at all. It was a really, really well executed trap by the low-sec guys.
Not trap, escalation. That's the thing about
it. Trap, sorry, yeah.
Like that's the thing that's so funky about this is that because it happened in the dead zone, reaction times across the entirety of Eve were so slow. What happened was, we went in with caps and supers way too aggressively. Apparently, the goal was this CO2 tower was getting actively sieged by, I think, Mercenary Coalition dreads. There could have been Shadow Cartel. I'm not exactly sure on the details as to who was there first, but we went in over the top and dropped the hammer, and the dread bomb was later dropped. What happened was the Titans bumped. Like the Titans that were lost were the ones that once the hammer was dropped, they went flying, which is a common problem for super capital pilots in general, is that you can't rely upon signowing in, warping in, and then just being where you need to be. So the ones got separated, and then of course you drop a dread bomb on that. And that's exactly how that went down, and it was just kind of a mess. And then segueing into the next one, a few days later, we had just an old-school battleship brawl with just carnage, right? It started in Hakonen, and the Imperium got our asses handed to us, which was kind of funny because one of the Coalition, the billing guys who has been desperately trying to act like his alliance, didn't actually just retreat and give up and move back to Syndicate a couple weeks ago. That would be Tissue and Lex Arson and that crew, was trying to claim on Reddit that we had been saying that it was a victory and made this big fake broadcast, and they all bought into it because they're going to believe whatever they want to believe from the safety of Syndicate after retreating by attacking in another direction. But I mean, we can mock them for that, but the reality is that, we did get our asses handed to us in the Hakonen brawl because we didn't bring strong enough battleship numbers. And it turned out one of the things that we changed today, we discovered that one of the biggest impediments to the Imperium having good enough Macarial numbers is that our reimbursement requirements were too high for Goon Swarm, requiring Battleship 5. So we changed that today, and we told everybody that you can use a Yacht Fleet Macarial for only BS4, and our numbers went up by like 30 in the fleet that we went. We were like, oh, okay, sure, I will now fly that. But we got our asses handed to us in Hakonnen itself, and then while we were extracting, NC and PL and Pandemic Horde chased us into MTAC-O, which is right across from the Taizi gate. So we're sort of fleeing tails between legs because we got our asses kicked. And then there's only one problem with having the Coalition of the Building being a mix of low-sec guys and null-sec guys, is that the low-sec guys were afraid to go into null-sec.
Well, let me interrupt you for 1 second, because Deskman87 said in chat, I think we need to increase the EHP of our yacht fleet battleships as they are getting alpha before our reps could land. And that's what Becarials and Maelstroms do. If you looked at what we were fighting against, I think they had 187 in the MetaShow fight, more in the actual Hakonnen brawl. I think it's something like 40 or 50 battleships will actually alpha another battleship. So there's no amount of EHP you can put on these ships that's going to keep them from getting alpha, especially in a battleship versus battleship slugfest. That's why you saw the number of dead in that fight so high. So there's actually nothing that anyone can do about the amount of sheer alpha from artillery fleets.
That's why in those fights, like in a fight which doesn't involve alpha, you'll end up in a situation where you'll be primarying people's logistics in general. You don't really go after Logi in a alpha DPS versus alpha DPS fight, because it's just a contest as to killing each other's DPS to the point that somebody can catch reps and not be alphaed anymore. So the primary the focus of what you're doing in those fights is completely different when you're dealing with alpha. So that's why these things are so gory. And then where it gets funny is the low-sec people were too afraid and refused to jump from Taizi into MTAC-O. Where we proceeded to have like an Alamo style thing where, the Imperium, what we always do is that we actually have a coordination team that we brought on some new sub-directors, and they're doing a fantastic job. Really love those guys. And we always, whenever there's a big pitched battle, we are constantly pinging for reinforcements and having the moment one reinforcement fleet arrives to a fight, the next one starts and forms and sends that. So when you have a long, any kind of a tie-dye fuckfest, we're just constantly sending dudes in the fight. So in MTAC-O, all the low-sec guys with their slaves, their slave implants, and all their fancy elite PvP would not jump into nullsec. We've been told for years that low-sec is this wild and crazy, scary place, but the reality is that low-sec is easy mode compared to nullsec, and we just were scared because goons are bad. Basically, our allies have been in low-sec having fun for years, and because of Asakai and Darius and whatever, they're like, ooh, low-sec, freaky. But there's bubbles there, and you might get potted. So the moment that the fight actually started happening in MTAC-O, we kept sending in reinforcements and turned it from, a loss into we had a fun little victory, bloody, incredibly bloody. But it's good. We won that one, and it's always fun to see the low-sec guys refuse to help their valued allies because, ooh, bubbles are scary, and bombs, ooh. But of course, low-sec is where real men and real warriors go, in a place where they don't have to worry about bubbles and bombs because they can't take it. They need their precious little implants. So that was fun. That was good. I'm glad that we pulled off the win there at the end, but we did get our asses handed to us in Hakonnen. And yeah. There's also been other war stuff going on. We had, I think PL, I wasn't sure whether Kill be. I think it was actually NC was leading that fleet, and they had PL attached to it. Had a few days ago reinforced a LON CSAA, or XL CSAA, as kids these days call them. And then they didn't even form for that today. We went to go defend it, and our enemies went off to Cloud Ring to siege a tower with subcaps in the case of Pandemic Horde, which was hilarious. Laz, have you been paying attention to the all of the AWACSing that DBRB has been doing?
I saw a Reddit post, and I heard there's some PL or Hordlings a little upset that DBRB is going around zonking all their stuff.
Actually, if you can find that Reddit thread and link that in chat so people can giggle about that. It's just hysterical. So basically, Pandemic Horde has. I'm just going to shit on goblins for a bit. Like, we've got 9 minutes until we're going to bring Xenuria on, and I'm just going to be a dick. So let me stretch. We're going to have robot voice. I don't know if I'm still...
No, you're good. You're good for now.
Okay, for now. So now's an opportunity. So, the funny thing is that most of the Coalition of the Building, the Children's Crusade, has fucked off. Tissue has loudly retreated to Syndicate. We're just not seeing that many hack attacks in general in Imperium territory. The Night's Watch, the Sword fleets have been doing an excellent job of that. And sort of the last man standing on this are Pandemic Horde, which is led by Admiral Goberius, aka Gobbins. Now, Gobbins has something to prove because he did try to get this coalition together to attack us from Cloud Ring, and then he lied about it. And of course, we can't throw shade about lying because it's Eve. You lie about shit all the time. That's how it works. But Gobbins tried to convince the world and the gaming media that he had rused the Imperium and that he had fooled me and all of us, and that the entire coalition that he was building was a joke. This is bullshit. And so when we attacked Cloud Ring to go into LowSec, he proceeded to write this 3,000 plus word piece of fan fiction.
I'm a robot now.
I am a robot. A robot ranting. So all this discussion about how the Imperium had been rused and how he had never actually intended to do anything from Cloud Ring to attack us, and how they fooled us and then fled to Aquarius without firing a shot. And you know that they had rused us and they had planned it all along because they had a panicked evac fleet from Cloud Ring after our State of the Union when we announced that we were going after them. Because when you have a plan, you totally do a panic unplanned evac. So anyway, this brings us to today. Most of the Children's Crusade is not getting the ISK that they used to be getting from Island ISK because of whatever reasons are taking place there. There's some sort of weird dynamic at play. But you still have Pandemic Horde in Okagainen, and Gobbins is trying to prove something because he wants to show that it was revealed that the Ruse Cruise thing was bullshit. That didn't stick. His attempt to go to the gaming media failed. Polygon shat all over everything that he was claiming, and so they're kind of left holding the bag, and they were left shooting towers today in Ferox's, which was hilarious, in Cloud Ring instead of fighting. Anyway, what's funny about this is that Gobbins never bothered to set up an off team. In his alliance, he never bothered setting up any sort of API checking method of you getting people in. You literally have goons and other members of the Imperium putting alts into Pandemic Horde because they, as a newbie-friendly organization, unlike other newbie-friendly organizations that protect their newbies by making sure that they can't get AWOXed, they never did their homework. They didn't build an institution. So you have goons putting in literally, like, the name backwards. I am a goon AWOXer. Is applying to Pandemic Horde and getting in. And now our guys are just running, and Boat has been streaming on the Matani.com stream, running around and just AWOXing the shit out of Pandemic Horde because Gobbins doesn't know what the fuck he's doing in terms of actually keeping things. So here we go. We have, checking here about Skype, rant over soon, please. I'm improving. I'm in denial. I'm not sure. Oh, we have Doc663 is trying to get us to toe the party line. I always have to make sure what's happening here by reading the chat after I rant for a little bit. I'm not sure what's wrong with the visuals, guys. I see the Skype.
It's back now. It just came back.
Gotcha. Somebody's asking a question about SMA being dead now and what have you. One of the things that's funny is that you can see the breakdown of the Children's Crusade. For the last few weeks, Reddit was on fire because they think that they can win wars by posting on Reddit because that was worked out so well, historically speaking. And there was all SMA dying, SMA dying, SMA dying because, these guys, Tissue and Horde in particular, felt that if you just post a lot on REve, magic is going to happen and the Imperium will implode. And you don't really see anybody talking about SMA anymore. SMA has redeployed back to Fade and has been raising the ADMs in their region. The number of hacks that have been taking place has just been flatlining. And all of the, oh my god, SMA is going to die at any moment stuff has been revealed to be what I have been saying all along, which is just fan fiction. You can't upvote reality. You cannot write about how SMA is imploding and how all this shit is getting lost and upvoted a bunch, and magically speaking, SMA is going to go away. And so now, instead of posting about SMA, the same people who are talking about it constantly are just acting like that never happened and that they never posted about it and that they never said that SMA was going to implode and, whatever. They're just going to stick their fingers in their ears and try to downvote the pain away. So yeah, it's been a pretty good week. I mean, the Hakonnen stuff is a bit silly, but our guys are having fun, and yeah can't complain.
We got about 4 minutes till we bring Xenuria in. I guess let's go ahead and transition over into talk about a little bit of CC, please, that's going on this week. It's a rather big week this week when it comes to the tier side changes, Tech 3 servers being released. Like there's a lot of stuff that went on in the past week and a half since last MetaShow.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the biggest thing is the Tech 3 being installed. We had we've had like 3 major fights, and like in the Hakonnen Dread Bomb, I went into that system and there was no tie-dye. It was like 700 people in the system and there was no tie-dye, which was pretty impressive. And then we had the M-O fight, which I don't think that node was reinforced in MO.
No,
So,
no, it wasn't. We haven't felt reinforcement for much besides Saren, and in general, like these fights are happening. The tie-dye hasn't been too bad, though I was reading that Grath was reporting that there was lots of like lag and issues in the most recent Hakonnen and MTAC O fight, but I didn't really see our guys complaining about that. Like it sounds like there are issues, but it's not nearly as bad as it was previously. And the biggest issue, of course, is the gong, which is now getting to be removed, but that's just...
Well, the gong is gone.
Okay.
The gong is okay.
Hot fixed out. No more bong, bong, bong. On the other hand, with Tiericide, another thing that's happened is that a lot of everybody's favorite fits have been completely screwed over. I mean, not screwed over in a, oh my god, it's the end of the world, this is bad. I'm a big fan of Tiericide in general. I really like that they squished Sensor Boosters and ECCM, and like this is finally happening. But, you know, changing damage controls and changing some of the fits on points has resulted in a lot of old standard fittings that everybody was using. Suddenly now we have to rejigger everything. What actually, Laz, from an analysis perspective, what do you think is the biggest impact on these, like on actual PvP with the fits that have been altered for the most recent patch?
Well, I mean, the big thing is you look at the Warp Scramblers and the Stasis Webfires, they took all the meta ones and they actually made them worse. So, like, the best named meta Warp Scrambler, which was a 9-kilometer scrambler, is now an 8250 scrambler, and it also costs more CPU. Also, the same thing with the Fleeting Web. It went from a 60% web to a 55% web, and also increased CPU. So what you're running into now is everyone's fits, who they're using these meta modules to try and fit as much as possible into their ships and of the best quality, that it doesn't work anymore because all these increased CPU requirements mean they no longer work, and they have to either use implants or change their fit completely. I've like pretty much every single fit that I had pre-changed doesn't work anymore. And also,
well, that's a huge pain in the ass.
Our chat thing just quit working. Whatever. Let's roll with it. Chat's working in Twitch.
On fire and broken. Okay, yeah. That's pretty hilarious. And we've got a little bit of trolling back and forth in chat, which is always fun. Is people talking about no really goalpost moving, of no really we weren't trying to destroy SMA. We were just trying to make your life miserable, which is usually in the aftermath of a retreat or any kind of a breaking point in a war. You will see what I call squid ink of just all the rationalizations and goalpost moving. What people will be doing, kind of like Doc663 is doing in chat here, where he's talking about how. You know, they weren't really trying to make SMA lose SOB. They weren't really trying to break SMA. They were just trying to, you know, make an emotional impact, which nobody cares about. All that matters is the bottom line. So that's kind of funny. What else do we have going on? I think it's almost time for us to bring in Xenuria. I think it is about that time. I do believe it is that time. So guys, if you have any questions about Tiericide or anything like that, you can always hit me up on Twitter. If you want to, like, and also Scared Panda brought up in chat, there's also some new camera bugs right now where like the camera will just get jammed or something like that. So if you run into that, you can either swap to the old camera or you can, I think, dock and undock or open up the next store. I think we'll fix it. All right, so guys, coming up now, we have Xenuria going to be joining us. And I will be turning that on if you want to go ahead and intro him out. All right, so Xenuria is a fixture in the EVE community, which is a funny thing to say. Very well-known individual and is on the Imperium's CSM ballot. Controversial candidate. A lot of people were surprised that we have taken Xenuria seriously. The people were surprised that Xenuria has been brought into Goonswarm. And it's true. I mean, a few years ago, Xenuria drove me crazy. But one of the things that is fascinating about him is how rapidly he learns and he adapts. And people who have met him at FanFest from 3 or 4 years ago have gotten to witness this sort of change. And he takes the CSM, his run and his desire to fix the game very seriously. I would argue more seriously than many of the sort of joke candidates or super serious candidates who then get on the CSM and don't do a good goddamn thing. Which is, you know, a large number of the people on the most recent CSM. So Xenuria, I want to apologize to you, first of all, because we had a scheduling hiccup the last MetaShow. We were supposed to have Xenuria on last time, and we had Arathon instead. So that's my fault, it turned out, and I'm sorry about that, Xenuria. But let's just go ahead and start things off. Xenuria, can you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing? Actually, tell us why you're running for CSM.
Okay, I'm running for CSM specifically on a reform platform because I think that for any system to last for any extended period of time, it has to change and grow. And the CSM has been, well, the polite way to put it is been having some issues. That's a polite way. And I would attribute a lot of these issues to not just the way that different actors and people interact, but also the way that the system is structured. So I'm running for the CSM because I believe that my background in consulting and basically security and information stuff at a corporate level would be very useful. And I also think that my autism helps with perceiving things that otherwise go overlooked, that most people just, they don't notice why this will be a problem 2 weeks later. It just doesn't occur to them, and then I notice it, and it prevents something bad from happening, I guess, is a way to explain that.
So one of the things that you said there, and sorry, we had a weird video difficulty. I had to like turn my camera just turned off randomly. Maybe it'll stop being off now, who knows? Once we get this sorted out, one of the questions I have is, you say that you're running as a reform candidate. What do you mean by a reform candidate?
Well, reform doesn't just mean in a political parlance. It doesn't just mean, stop corruption and stop leaks. It also means altering or optimizing existing systems within the CSM. Like the CSM uses certain software to communicate and integrate with the developer team, and there's issues that they're having with the way that's configured. That is an example of something that I would look at and spend a lot of my free time working on as a reform candidate, because I'd be reforming the way an existing system works so that it is better and that more people can actually communicate and spend less time worrying about, oh God, why isn't this configured properly?
So one of the things that has come up a lot in CSM discussions recently, not just Scion writing articles, which of course whenever Scion says anything about the CSM, our enemies flip out and spew a whole bunch of hypocrisy about how it's unique, special, and different than Scion said, and he's somehow bad. And yet many of the things that he has said about the CSM, the challenges on the most recent iteration of the CSM, have been mirrored and validated by Sugar Kyle, by Corbex, by many of the other people who are currently on the CSM, have agreed with what Scion has said about the difficulties on this CSM. Have you investigated this controversy, and how do you hope to interact with things in a different way than this past CSM has?
Well, I think it's definitely the difficulty is cranked all the way up. I went from being the Dexter Morgan of internet trolls to a statesperson pretty much overnight, and that was not an easy transition, but it was something that is possible. So even though, based on from what I'm reading and what pretty much everyone is saying about the existing problems with communication, I'm confident that I'm able to handle. I'm confident that I can go into that situation fresh, having never been on the council before, and figure out some real solutions and work past any kind of personal bullshit that people might have either way.
So you've seen recently there's been a video of CCP Guard and Logibro calling for people to be voting, and also sort of, I suppose, introducing themselves as the new face of the CSM from the CCP side. Do you have any experience in working with Guard or Logibro in the past, and what did you think about the video?
I don't want to say worked with Guard. Most of the time when I'm interfacing with CCP, it's either through their sales or their community department, which would be Falcon. Yeah. So I haven't really, I've met Guard in person. He seems like a really cool dude. I've met Logibro in person at Vegas. I don't think he likes me, but he seems like a mature enough person that he wouldn't let that get in the way of his job duties, I hope.
Oh, that's good. That's a pretty serious compliment. Being able to work with people who are difficult or what have you is pretty key.
That's part of the job, and I think some of the people that get starry-eyed about running for the CSM, they don't realize that up front, that they're going to have to be adults and be mature and deal with people they may not agree with.
And not just like leak everything all the time whenever you feel like it. Man, well, that is actually kind of funny all the way around. Laz was about to interject with something.
I was just going to say CCP Logibro is actually the guy who runs the Alliance tournament. So he definitely has the organizational skills to actually run a major event or a CSM. So I definitely like to see the changes that he particularly makes to it. And everyone knows who CCP Guard is. So
I'm a big fan of both Guard and of Logic Bro. Like, they've always struck me as being mature individuals, and we're going to have to see. I mean, they're in a tough position, actually. This is sort of a political thing, so Xenuria, I'm just going to sort of pause from the interview segment and sort of just do some analysis here for a moment. One of the things...
Robot again.
I'm a robot. Robotic analysis. Okay, Cylon politics time. So one of the things that's curious to me is Guard is beloved in the community, right? Because he generally gets to present good, fun things. Now, I've known Guard for years. He's fantastic. If you've ever met him at Vegas or at FanFest, he's just genuinely one of the nicest people that I've met in Iceland ever. But he's never been in a position where he needs to mediate with players in ways that are potentially public and contentious, right? So it's a very different thing to be a beloved community figure going to events and like managing community team stuff, and then being a CSM manager, because then suddenly you're in an inherently political position where you have to deal with competing interests of players. And one of the risks here, I don't think that Guard has ever been in a public position where what he says and does will come under the level of scrutiny that it will be as a CSM manager. Because if you're managing the CSM, as we saw with what happened with Lilu, if things are not handled in a principled way, it can just be an enormous level of controversy. And I hope it works out well, because I like the dude a lot, and I hope that we can have a good CSM round. But he's never been at the center of honest to God controversy or politics before, so this is going to be kind of different, I think.
And Xenuria, can you please move your mic a little either down or away? You're actually breathing into it.
Sorry.
It's fine.
There we go.
Thank you.
Awesome. So in general, I mean, what do you think so far about, like, what have you learned about campaigning this go around? Because I mean, you've run for the CSM before, right?
Yeah.
And this time you're actually on a block ballot, one of the only block ballots that still exists in kind of a post-block EVE Online.
Right.
What's different about it this time?
I think a lot of the people that thought I was just a crazy person standing on a soapbox a year or 2 years ago are now like, oh my God, holy shit, stuff is broken. We need somebody to fix the broken stuff. And those people are the people that, at least in terms of outside the Imperium, are going to just reflexively vote for me, because there's already this established trend of me being a reform candidate several times now. And while they didn't believe the problem was real then, it's real enough now to bite them in the face, and now they're hurt and they want to actually do something about it. So that's the hugest shift I've seen.
How do you keep track of, like, what are you doing to interface with your possible voting constituents? Like, I mean, are there any steps that you've been taking? Are you doing town halls? Are you posting threads? How are you interacting with your voting base?
Well, the first thing I established from the get-go was my openness to answer questions, regardless of what ticker is under your name or what flag you fly under. I made it a point to say I'm going to answer anybody's questions if they're like actual questions and not, oh my God, Xenuria, kill yourself. So I specifically put in the vote match and in the thread that I made that I could be contacted on Twitter, on Slack, in-game, through in-game mail, basically said, have at it, go for it, communicate, you have questions, ask them. And surprisingly, a lot of people had legitimate questions, had questions about stuff that wasn't exactly within my platform, like somebody asked about Dust, but I was kind of shocked, because in previous years, the kind of mail I would get was more like a regurgitation of self-loathing and angst, like the kind of thing you would see getting upvoted on our Eve. So I like that change. It's a positive change.
I mean, so essentially, if somebody is not in the Imperium, I mean, if you're in the Imperium, you could find Xenuria in Elysium and ask him questions there. But if you're not in the Imperium, you're easily reached on Tweetfleet Slack and the CSM channel. Is that where people would be finding you?
Yes, I'm always in there. It's always on. Even if I'm not at my computer, you can put the @ sign and send me a message, and I typically am really good about getting back to people.
So why should someone who has yet to vote, because the voting process on the CSM continues until, I believe, March 25th, thereabouts. So we have another 2 weeks, thereabouts. Why should somebody who hasn't voted yet put you on the ballot?
I think that's an excellent question, and it really plays to the nature of my platform. Anybody who hasn't voted and doesn't have somebody telling them you have to vote this way because you're with these people should vote for me, because I don't represent the interests of any one particular group in EVE Online. There's not any one demographic that benefits more or less from me getting on. So because my platform is a reform platform, it's not like wormholers are going to get fucked over because I get on the CSM, or high-sec Care Bears are going to be like, oh, don't put that guy on. You know, I think that's why people should vote for me, because it's a safe bet. It's not going to blow up in their faces, because I'm there to do a specific job that everybody wants done. And the people that don't want it done only don't want it done because the Destrudo has awakened within them and they just want to watch the whole thing burn.
Okay, so that's sort of an interesting follow-up question that I need to ask, which is, you mentioned earlier on that, like, one of the things that you think you can bring to the table that's unique is essentially autism, right? And I'm curious, and we've talked about this. You've been a guest on the MetaShow before, and I think we had this long psychological discourse about the nature of autism that made Laz go to sleep. And Laz also, I want to point out, loves CSM discussions. This is really like Laz's wheelhouse, and he's totally not like watching Netflix in another window here. But so one of the things you did mention is that you believe that your autism brings something unique to the table in terms of the CSM. At the very least, running for the CSM, we can predict based upon your behavior and the autism that you will actually do what you say in terms of investing all the hours and the time and the dedication, as opposed to the more common problem of many CSM delegates as they get there and that they just don't do anything. What does your autism bring as a benefit for a constituent to vote for you? Why is it good?
It brings something that is extraordinarily rare and nebulous in New Eden. It brings trustworthiness. It
Really?
brings,
How so?
because EVE is a game where lying gives you an advantage. It's all about trying to screw the other person over, take their money, take their ships, take their everything, and laugh about it all the way. I am a little bit different because I've never really done that. And when I say that, hey, I'm going to reform something, or I intend to, take all the things, put them on the table and rearrange them in a better way, people who understand what autism is can look at me and they say, oh, well, I trust that person because that's how autism works. They don't just say things to say things. They say things because they fixate on something that they want to do, and they do everything they can to do that thing. So that's a positive in the context of the CSM, especially
Gotcha.
when it's in much need of reform.
Now, I have no idea why, but apparently my camera has cut out.
Try turning it off and on again.
Try turning it off and on again. My God. Here we go. Let's see whether...
Did you unplug your router?
No, I didn't.
Plug it back in. Oh.
I have no idea why this is happening today. It's funny because I was on Skype earlier having some meetings and had no trouble at all. But one of the things that...
Let me interject, though, before it scrolls out of my view again. Noisy Gamer, which everyone knows who Noisy Gamer is, he used to do all the CSM blog stuff, and he does... mainly he's known as the RMT guy. But Noisy Gamer asked, how does Xenuria feel about CCP allowing people to run this year who used the voting exploit that Xenuria warned about last year?
Well, I warned about a few different problems with voting. One of them being the time, how old the account had to be, which I'm not sure they might have changed. Which, can you be specific?
Well, we're gonna have to wait for him to. If you want to be more specific, he's gonna need to say.
But yeah, I think there's been a shift in importance. I think voter reform and the voting system reform, yeah, that's definitely something that needs to be worked on. Like, the site shouldn't be lagging as you're trying to pick through candidates, because that de-incentivizes the target behavior of voting for candidates, right? This is Psych 101, people. Why can't you make a website that doesn't lag to hell when someone's trying to do the thing you want them to do?
Right. Well, that's one of the things in general that is curious with the CSM. Every time that there's a discussion of politics or the CSM, is that there's a lot of people who do not understand basics of psychology and the whole naive literalism problem that we've talked about in previous shows when we were analyzing the politics of it. What has your impression been, and are you aware of any data? I don't know whether you are or not about turnout for this year.
Well, I'm not great with numbers, but what I do understand is that CCP is super concerned about turnout because they're putting in developer time, they're putting in man hours to make these things like the video we were talking about that say, go out, vote, be participatory in the process. So that tells me, maybe not on a math, but at least on a behavioral level, that they have a vested interest in people actually giving a shit about this entire thing. And I think that also tends to work in my favor because I also want people to give a shit enough to trust that I can make them give a shit more through the changes that I propose and make.
And just as a helper, because Aerith is a helper, and he's also on the ticket from the Imperium this time around, Aerith has helpfully linked the block voting list for the Imperium in chat. So if you haven't voted yet, I would encourage you to exercise your freedom of choice to do exactly what I tell you in exactly the way that I tell you, and click that link that Aerith has put there, and then vote exactly that, which will, of course, also include a vote for Xenuria, Aerith, the nominate, and many of the other Imperium candidates, because that's how we roll. So Nosy Gamer has clarified it a little bit. He's talking about the Plex UC exploit, where you get to log in an expired account for a few hours. I think he's talking about using hours for Plex.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm against that. That's not right. Yeah, I didn't even know about that, but now that I think about it, yeah, that should definitely be fixed right away. You should.
I don't. Is that actually possible? Because I mean, when hours for Plex
last year it was.
Really, because
Well,
in
that's
previous elections, you couldn't do hours for Plex and have it count. So that's kind of curious. I mean, what's interesting about that though is that in a situation to really be able to impact the vote on that, you would require a whole bunch of organized people with lots of access to accounts that are motivated to vote in an election that appears to be relatively low turnout. If only we knew people who were extremely motivated, extremely organized, had large amounts of access to things like that. What's funny is that if that is not changed, and the Imperium has high turnout because organization, unity, discipline, victory, that's kind of what we do, is that I expect that some of our detractors will claim that we only voted a lot because of using which we only just found out about. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think it's a record low turnout. Actually, I think that this might be one of the worst turnout elections that we've seen. The only people who are really talking about the CSM actively that I've seen, in terms of casual channels and things like that, is the Imperium, and that's because the Imperium is pissed off about the no scions rule and all the bullshit from our collective foes and all that crap that went down. So, we've been pinging it, we've been talking about it. We have you and Aerith on the MetaShow to discuss it. But I don't think anybody else in EVE is really paying attention to it, which is interesting because I'm curious to see how well we can do with a single transferable vote, block vote in a non-block environment. I don't know.
Well, that's actually a really good segue into a question to ask in chat. Iceem wants to know, why should people vote? Like, after all the stuff that's happened this year, what's the motivation for people to go out and actually vote for the CSM?
Can I answer
Go
this?
for it, Xenuria.
You should vote because rights afforded to you by something more powerful than you are like muscles. When you do not use them, they are slowly but surely taken away. And you might not care about it now, you might not care about it next year or the year after, but if nobody votes and nobody gives a shit, it's just going to blow away in the wind. There isn't going to be a CSM if people stop investing their time and effort and intellect into it.
That's actually a really good answer. I'm surprised. I hadn't thought of it that way before. I'm impressed. I have an answer, and that's a good answer for the player base as a whole, Xenuria, and I will answer that question purely from an Imperium motivation perspective. So as far as our people are concerned, many times it's important for us to vote for the CSM, even if people do not believe in the CSM, because historically speaking, our guys are like the first line of defense against stupidity, right? If you don't have that tripwire on the CSM, idiocy can take place. And we know that from CSM 5. So one of the things that the grayscale era developers and the non-nullsec CSM people on CSM 5 years ago, nullsec got bored with the CSM, said, who cares, why bother voting? And what ended up happening was you had a bunch of like random high-sec people who had no idea how SOV worked, had no idea how nullsec worked, telling Grayscale that, yeah, we should totally get rid of jump bridges. And they tried to get rid of jump bridges, which would have been yet another reason why there's no reason to bother having SOV. And you have these people who do not understand it, offering these dumb ideas and validating dumb ideas from CCP, and then nearly implementing. And CSM 6, thankfully, got together, Null got together, put people who knew what the hell they were doing on the CSM, and were able to push back against the idiocy. So from an Imperium perspective, and in general from a Null perspective, you want to vote for the CSM not necessarily because you believe that magic and rainbows and unicorns are going to happen and democracy and suddenly everything's going to be different. You want to vote for the CSM because if you do not get representatives on the CSM, you do not have a defense or a warning sign against idiocy. So it's essentially a negative defensive reason for doing it. You might be able to get positive change rammed through, but at the very least, if you do not vote, you put yourself, your people, and the game that you like at risk to fools, validating other fools. And so you need to vote for the CSM because otherwise, you'll have jump bridges removed, and Grayscale will say that jump freighters should have a 5 light year range, and nobody is going to be there to sound the alarm and say, what the fuck are you thinking? This is dumb. So yeah, that's my answer to the why vote for the CSM. Even if you are going, man, why bother? They won't be able to get anything done positive. They're your first line of defense, the canary in the mine shaft against just raw idiocy. And apparently I'm. And also, as somebody in chat points out, you should vote because I told you to, which is the best reason to vote. Exercise your freedom of choice to do exactly what I tell you in exactly the way I tell you. Because that's how we roll.
So it sounds like it's how it should be, right?
I think everyone can take comfort in the idea that if I think something is stupid, I am very vocal about how stupid I think it is, as I think my track record has shown.
That is true.
They don't have to worry about me just nodding my head in agreement to something I think is dumb. That's not going to happen.
I think that's the thing that they really, like, if it was the different administration, I think that would be something that they really would be afraid of. I mean, we were planning on having you on the ballot before they changed the managers of the CSM away from CCP Lulu. And, having somebody who is autistic and relentless and vocal and will not just sit there quietly and lick boots. I mean, you are not a bootlicker. There's jokes about how you want to do things involving shoes and like changing shoes, and I've never understood the shoe thing. But, one of the biggest issues that we had on this most recent CSM is that there were real and legitimate problems that we saw come out with the no scions rule and all the bullshit, and then they changed the managers on the CSM. And up until the point that Lilu was not doing the CSM anymore, there was an entire group of people on the CSM at the time, such as that Fuzzy Steve guy and a few others, who were just, licking boots. They were saying that everything was peachy and everything was wonderful, and why is Scion making noise? Why is Sugar Kyle making noise? Why is Corbex making noise? Why is Thorek making noise? Why is Sword Dragon making noise? Why don't you just sit quietly and, kiss the master's feet? And there's no risk of that with you. I mean, I think that that's one of the things that will be excellent all the way around, is that we can sort of bank on. I don't know if that's an autism thing or if that's a character trait thing. Either way, I think it makes
it's
for
both.
Excellent. Yeah, probably a little column A, a little column B. So any additional questions that people might have in chat for Xenuria, please, and I will throw them at him. And somebody is asking Xenuria, how will you fix shoes in Eve?
I'm going to make sure that they have 5K resolution textures that everyone's going to be forced to download.
Hyper resolution shoes. That's excellent. Well, we should probably do some giveaways. We're getting down to the last 5 minutes.
Yep.
I want to go ahead and also promote the stream that's coming up next. We were talking earlier about how DBRB is running around and AWOXing Pandemic Horde relentlessly, and apparently on the according to our official TMC Twitter that I just saw, Boat is going to be running around and also AWOXing on the show. So the Boat show coming up next is going to involve DBRB running around and showing Gobbins why you need to have institutions and have organization in an alliance, and how you can't just write a lot on Reddit and magically have victory, and you certainly can't get away with whining in our chat about how, oh, well, we didn't intend to take the Sov anyway. We wrote a post about what we really intended to do, so we're totally not moving our goalposts, and we totally actually won. And, oh, God, why are you AWOXing us? Ah! So that's coming up next. I hope that everyone gets a chance to enjoy the screaming, bleeding, and crying. And I'm going to laugh my ass off if Boat actually just like plays something else and he isn't going to AWOX. So, Boat, do what's necessary. Twist the knife.
All right, guys, so if you don't already talk in chat, guys, talk in chat and follow the stream. If you're not following the stream, you cannot win. We're giving away 3 pirate rookie code, or not rookie codes, but rookie ships. So if you do end up winning, guys, you need to message the channel, demonhoney.com, and give us what your in-game character name and which of the 4 pirate rookie ships that you'd like to have. And also big shout out to CCP for giving us these codes for us to make it random, you guys.
Making it rain. And also somebody was asking to relink the voting list. I have relinked the voting list. You can now, even if you're not in the Imperium, you can do exactly what I tell you, which is excellent. That's sort of the first step in becoming a member of the Imperium, is enjoying, learning to love Big Brother, or Uncle Mittens, as the case may be. So, all right. So, let's make it rain. Let's do it, Laz. Let's do it.
Doing the first roll now. Let's see, Mecha Destroyer, subscriber as well. Thanks so much for the support, dude. Make sure you message this channel. Then we get Arte's Alliance, congrats. And then Stalbeck80, also subscriber. Thank you so much for your support, dude. So
excellent.
That's our 3 for the day, guys. Thanks everyone so much for tuning in. Xenuria, thanks so much for tuning in and joining us. Guys, coming up next is going to be a really, really exciting boat show, it seems, with some AWOXing. So if you don't know what AWOXing is, basically it's when you have a blue spy in a hostile alliance, and you use that blue spy to actually tackle ratters and expensive ships and kill them.
What's funny is that, like, we are open and, like, we're literally streaming this over and over. We've got another 2 minutes. Like, we're literally streaming him AWOXing nonstop. And this has been going on for, like, 3 or 4 days now. And they still haven't adapted. They're still letting in, like, you know, I'm a goon AWOXer spelled backwards, like, Goonie McSpyalt AWOXer 420. Like, they're letting this kind of shit in. And they're trying to act like we're, like, being mean to them, and that this is unexpected. Like, maybe we shouldn't be. Like, you loudly try to come at us, and then we make bad things happen to you. This is how it works. But hey, let's go to war against the Imperium, because I'm sure that nothing bad will happen. And, you know, Mittens seems like a really nice, forgiving kind of guy, and there totally won't be months and months and months of reprisals and cruelties and creative entertainments for the boys, our boys and girls, at the expense of our erstwhile wayward foes. So looking forward to it. Going to get to see Boat spill some blood, and I hope you guys will stick around with us, and we'll see you around next week. I think that's about it. I think we're done here. Yeah,
so I don't think we have guests next for the next week. So guys, I'll probably post middle of the week or so. Hopefully we'll have a guest lined up for you. But if you guys have any ideas for guests or anything anyone you'd like to see on the MetaShow, just let us know, hit us up, and then again we'll see you next Saturday.
Yep, and I'm seeing an AWOXing fleet is forming up right now. Ping just went out across the entire Imperium, so it is real, boys and girls. Let us watch Boat sow some chaos. And thank you, Xenuria, for coming on. It's good to have you again.
So guys, stay tuned for the Boat show. We'll see you next week.
All right. We're waving. We're saying goodbye. We don't